This is the Brave New Coin Crypto Conversation, hosted by Andy Pickering.
Hi everyone, Andy Pickering here. I'm your host and welcome to the Crypto Conversation, a Brave New Coin podcast where we talk to the people building the future in the Bitcoin, blockchain and cryptocurrency space. My guest today is Michael Wagner. Michael is the CEO and co-founder of Star Atlas, very exciting Metaverse blockchain game. Michael is also the co-founder of Multi-Chain Ventures and also the Tokes platform. And Michael has been on the show before, I think about a year ago, where we did talk quite a bit about the Tokes platform and how that is trying to disrupt, I guess, the medical marijuana space. But hey, welcome back to the show, Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Great to be back on with you.
Great to have you back. So I guess we'll cover off everything you're across today, Michael, but really excited particularly to catch up and dig into the incredible world of Star Atlas. But I suppose first we should do what we always do, which is get you to please introduce yourself.
Sure. I guess, just quickly on background, I've been in the space for a long time. Formerly worked in the traditional finance space and capital markets. I'm a CFA charter holder. And so my direct work was in portfolio management and investment and securities analysis. Got introduced to Bitcoin and altcoins through script coin mining back in 2013. Really suboptimal timing, to be honest with you. This was kind of right at the height of the bull cycle in that year. And it was right before the collapse of Mt. Gox. And so, my first foray, my first endeavor in the space through script coin mining was not profitable, but fortunately it did captivate my attention about the potential of the technology that is blockchain and kind of the ethos around decentralization. And so I spent the next couple of years just immersing myself and learning as much as I could. Made the decision in 2015 to go full-time into crypto, forego my formal career, and one of the best decisions I've made in my life, but led to the formation and founding of Tokes platform in 2016. That project is still going incredibly well. We've had a number of successes there with the legal cannabis industry, including the passing of Assembly Bill 466, which is introduces a pilot program for a tokenized closed loop financial ecosystem for the legal cannabis industry in Nevada. I was quite fortunate. I was able to recruit some talented individuals on that team, two of which, Danny Floyd and Jacob Floyd, went on to co-found Star Atlas with me in 2020. There is a fourth co-founder. His name's Pablo Quiroga. And so the four of us, through the conceptualization phase in 2020 around what we felt could be an extremely disruptive new audience or product for a new audience that could attract people into the crypto space. And that is, bringing the AAA quality video game development experience to cryptocurrency and coupling that with things like NFTs, so non-fungible tokens, crypto native assets, and the integration of DeFi. And what this really delivers for the player is true asset ownership, and also the ability to monetize time that's being spent in these digital environments. The kind of buzzword right now is Metaverse. And so that's how we perceive Star Atlas and what we think is really the future of gaming.
Yeah, I'm almost getting chills just listening to you bring those Star Atlas threads together, Michael. And I think one of the things that's always obvious in hindsight is with, in regards to, I suppose, smart people entering the crypto space, they often have a common journey, and you've just articulated that yourself when I think you said you got in 2013, and looking back might not have been the best time to get in, but of course, from with the benefit of hindsight, looking back from 2021, that was an excellent time to get in. And no matter when, if people do tend to, often their first introduction to crypto might be at sort of near the peak of that particular market cycle. But as long as you stay in the game, there's no bad time to get into the crypto space, as long as you do get in and kind of stick around and do the work. But in regards to Star Atlas, Michael, again, even though 2020 is not early, the way that you've identified that blockchain gaming, and I know Star Atlas is almost bigger than that, but crypto gaming, blockchain gaming is going to be a big thing. But the way that you've brought this AAA gaming ethos to it, and also NFTs, which have had an incredible boom this year, and DeFi as well, to kind of bring that all together with the vision of, as you say, giving players the ability to monetize their time, because that is just going to be such an important trend over the next decade, I think. And you're right in the thick of it, right?
Right at the center of it, yeah. And just to your previous point, these bear and bull and bear cycles, while there are definitely some winners and definitely some losers, and some people remain, others leave and never look back. I think that these cycles have led to an incredible periods of growth, right? So people are initially attracted to the potential to earn these outsized returns through this new alternative asset class that is cryptocurrency. And just because not everybody's winning all the time does not mean that these, like even the bear cycle itself is a great time to immerse yourself and learn more. And if you're a builder, it's a great time to build. There's less noise out there. And so it's a little bit easier to be heads down and focused. But moving forward into Star Atlas, 2019 was really a fantastic year for the emergence of decentralized finance. 2020 we started. Obviously, DeFi had been around. NFTs have been around. 2017, I think. CryptoKitties amongst the first. I don't think it was the very first, but it was amongst the first in 2017. And but none of the NFTs that really existed out there follow the same format that we do in this video game concept, which is really a utility-driven asset. So the assets themselves, through player engagement, have the ability to generate income, right? And so that, as an asset, creates intrinsic value that can be applied to it. And so, we saw these trends in DeFi. We saw the trends in NFTs, and I should mention here, I'm a longtime gamer. I grew up with a group of friends. We called ourselves the Lanarchists. So this was back in the 90s when we had to bring our computers to someone's house to be able to multiplayer game, because broadband internet wasn't widely available at the time. And the other co-founders have years, really decades of experience in AAA quality gaming development. And so, we saw these trends and we saw what was taking place in blockchain gaming, but where we wanted to differentiate was, and we should probably clarify what AAA quality gaming means, but this is really when you think about like mainstream games that exist out there that people play on PlayStation or Xbox or PC gaming. These are all the highest quality, highest caliber graphics, the best storylines, the best lore, the best plots. Everything is just thought through and delivered best in class. And so that was kind of the missing element that we saw. None of the existing blockchain games really kind of accounted for that. And so it was largely turn-based games or card-style games, very rudimentary graphics. And that, once again, that's where we saw the biggest opportunity was if we build a product that's attractive to the mainstream. And there are 2.7 billion gamers in the world, which I think is actually not even our total demographic that we can go after. But if we can attract the mainstream gamer, not only does that mean we can create a great product for them and also deliver a superior experience to traditional gaming, but think about the potential of attracting all of those people into cryptocurrency and getting them exposed to blockchain and getting them exposed to things like decentralized finance. So I do believe that this will lead to one of the largest mass migrations of new users into cryptocurrency, because they can get involved, they can participate, they can learn, and they can have fun while they're doing it.
Yeah, very nicely said, Michael. And look, you're exactly right. And part of because blockchain gaming is so new, relatively speaking, there's partly that it's new, and partly because the blockchain is the kind of the inbuilt limitations, if you like, make gaming slightly more challenging to build. So some of the early blockchain games were, I think, as you were hinting at, a little bit clunky, and that is sort of still true today, particularly, you know, a lot of the play to earn games like Axie are kind of notoriously hard to get started in and dedicate time to, even though it can be very rewarding to do so. So I suppose with that in mind, Michael, really interested to hear how you're bringing that AAA gaming experience to Star Atlas while still having a decentralized finance component, a blockchain component, NFT component. And because if you're listening to this and you're not really familiar with Star Atlas or what we're talking about, you know, just go to the Star Atlas website or look at the trailers on YouTube, and you can see that when when Michael was talking about, you know, graphics and gameplay that can compete with, you know, the biggest titles on Fortnite, PlayStation or Xbox, or like Fortnite, that is effectively what you guys are trying to build. And also talk to me, how is the Unreal Engine involved here, Michael?
Sure, yeah, and let's just, you know, maybe start with the gameplay pillars of Star Atlas. So this is a space-themed, massively multiplayer online game. The players will be engaged in things like space exploration, territory control, political domination. That last component, we're in a really interesting space with the emergence of DAOs as well, decentralized autonomous organizations. And so these novel new governance structures that we can actually integrate into the game itself. But I'm sure we'll get into the Polis DAO. But so we start with those gameplay pillars. We're building out an Unreal Engine 5, which is really the latest iteration of game engine technology. It delivers a hyper-realistic cinematic quality gameplay experience even while playing the game. So in most traditional games, you know, for anyone out there that's played them, you'll know that you get these kind of intro trailers and cutscenes, or, you know, cutscenes throughout the gameplay that look fantastic. You know, they look pretty realistic, and those are all pre-rendered. But then you get into the gameplay, and the graphics are toned down a bit. With Unreal Engine, we won't really have any of those limitations because of the way that they've evolved the technology and kind of reduced the rendering requirements for like GPUs and things of that nature. So Unreal is going to enable us to provide users with an experience that's almost indiscernible from reality. And I think that that's super important, because in developing out the metaverse concept, what we're really trying to build is an alternative virtual universe or reality that people can persist with it. And that's only possible if you can feel truly immersed in that experience. Now, we get the graphical fidelity and cinematic experience through Unreal, and then we enhance that by, as I said, you know, utilizing and integrating crypto assets. So non-fungible tokens. Every player that is engaged in the game will own a ship, or they'll own real estate, land. They'll own buildings and structures and crew members, orbital space stations. Almost everything that you interact with inside the universe that is Star Atlas will be a non-fungible token. And so players have the true ability to take ownership. This is in stark contrast to the way that traditional game environments work. I like to use the analogy of kind of like a rental model in real estate versus ownership in real estate. So when you're renting property, you know, you get access to it. You get to use the property for as long as you're paying rent, and as long as you live there. But as soon as you leave, you forfeit any access, any rights to it, as well as any, you know, any potential value increase that might exist through the property ownership. By creating non-fungible tokens and integrating those into the game, the players, yes, there is a kind of capital requirement to get involved, but if they ever decide in the future that they want to stop playing, then they can turn around and resell that asset. And whether it's, you know, gone up in price or down in price is indifferent. What's important is that they still have ownership over an item that provided them access to the game.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And what I'd love to hear a little bit about what kind of growth you're seeing. I guess what kind of user metrics you're watching with Star Atlas, and how you see that trajectory increasing, if you like. And also, one of the things that's interesting about these incredible new metaverse economies and Star Atlas is potentially one of the biggest and brightest at this point. How do you balance the equation in terms of, obviously you want to reward the early adopters, the first users, but you've also got to strike that balance of not, pricing out newcomers, and this could be, it could just be people that become interested, or, your 8-year-olds that turn into 10 and then 12-year-olds and they want to get involved. How can an average 12-year-old compete in the Star Atlas universe against someone who was there from the beginning and building up, strength and weaponry through hoarding everything that they can in the first place, if that makes sense?
It does. And it is a complex equation. Let me start with the growth component. I mean, the sector itself has seen pretty enormous growth. A lot of new game products are coming out, concepts are coming out. Axie Infinity, much credit to them. They were really pioneers. They've been around for 4 years. They had extremely slow growth over the first 3 years, but then actually during the pandemic, kind of coincidentally enough, and some of the, unemployment that took place because of the pandemic, saw them growing to, greater than 1 million daily active users right now. So they are by far the largest across the crypto gaming space. But in our own case, we made our formal debut announcement to the public in January of this year. Obviously starting at zero, really, from a user base. We currently have almost 90,000 people in our Discord channel, 40,000 on Telegram. We have another 160,000 followers on Twitter. And then I would also comment to our internal growth, starting with really just the co-founding team of 4 people. We're now operating with greater than 140 people across the company, and we'll probably grow that. Our target is to grow that by 300 to 400% by this time next year. This is very, very important for game development. It is incredibly labor intensive because of all of the creative assets that need to be developed out. But in our own case, we're seeing massive growth, and it's exponential month over month. So very encouraging to see that. Now, of course, the competition is increasing a bit as well, but once again, nobody's really making the commitment to build to AAA quality gaming standards, and very few projects are building an Unreal Engine. Illuvium's the only other project that I know of that actually is building an Unreal right now. So kind of interesting metrics to observe. The economic component, I would say we really have 2 core mandates as a company. The first is to make sure that we're developing an extremely fun and engaging gameplay experience. Because in my opinion, and I think this is kind of echoed around the blockchain gaming space, is that, sure, earning off of gameplay is great, but if the gameplay itself is not enjoyable, then you might as well just go participate in DeFi, right? It's less consumption of your time, and you can probably earn just as much. And it just doesn't really lead to, the ability to escape reality, right? And so for us, the core mandate is make sure that we build a really fun game. The second mandate, though, and to your point, is making sure that we have a truly balanced economy that is self-sustainable in the long term. And this is going to be challenging to accomplish. Now, what we have implemented across our model, though, and more to your question about the ability for later players to be able to join the game, is, we have a wide range of valuation of game assets. So ships that start at $20, for example, but we also have ships that we anticipate will sell for greater than $5 million. And we will be maintaining that price point, even though, these items will be for sale through one of our 2 crypto native tokens, which is Atlas, the in-game transactional currency and medium of exchange. But there will essentially be a repricing mechanism so that new players can always buy in at effectively the same dollar value that earlier players got. Now, those players that are starting with, low asset values, what we anticipate is that their earnings are largely going to be reinvested back into purchasing upgrades, purchasing bigger ships, purchasing bigger land, which then, of course, naturally gives them the ability to compound that wealth and earn more money in the future off of their upgraded items and assets. But beyond that, what we have to ensure that we don't do is create this purely extractive economy where it's based entirely on the inflation or emission schedule of tokens that actually compensates players for playing the game. What we're building within the metaverse is the ability for innovators and entrepreneurs, industrious individuals to create their own opportunities and also create value within the metaverse itself. And so through, fully anticipate that people in the future will be not only creating custom content, but creating unique business models inside the metaverse that exist outside of the gameplay pillars that I just described. So we might have an individual that has no interest in flying around space and attacking other players and dominating land or being a governor in any capacity. They might just want to be a merchant that exists on a central space station wherein, they can curate digital art NFTs themselves from other blockchains and other projects across the space and simply host that art in their digital art gallery. And the way that they make money is actually by selling that art to other players, right? And so over time, we see this evolution of the metaverse being a place where it's really more of a sandbox for those innovators to create products and create their own monetary value, which in turn actually creates greater value overall for the metaverse itself.
Yeah, that's so interesting, Michael. Look, and I couldn't agree more. And love to just anything that you want to expand on there, because I think, the same way that I suppose, we've seen early internet adoption cycles and new internet business models become available to individual creators, right? And I'm just thinking of anything from, the early days of blogging to the early days of e-commerce and drop shipping, and then becoming like a Twitter influencer or an Instagram influencer, all that kind of stuff. But, the metaverse just takes these kind of individual, not even creator, just individual traders or creatives, whatever you want to do. Anything else that you can think of that will open up very soon to, I suppose, early metaverse entrepreneurs there, and not even just with Star Atlas, but beyond?
Yeah, on your last point, I don't necessarily believe that there's going to be a winner take all mentality for anyone that's creating metaverses. There's many companies out there that are attempting to build this right now, including mainstream brands like Facebook, right? I mean, they're talking about undergoing a rebranding right now to be more metaverse oriented. Epic, who is the creator of Unreal Engine, just raised $1 billion so they can build a metaverse concept. And I think they're proving ground right now is Fortnite. They're thinking of Fortnite as kind of the sandbox that they're going to elaborate on and ultimately become their metaverse. In our case, I can think of a number of different opportunities for people, but I'll make a bold statement here and say that I really think two things are going to happen. First, the metaverse is going to completely disrupt e-commerce. I think that individuals will prefer to utilize an avatar to go shop in three-dimensional space, especially if it's hyper-realistic, where they can have some degree of interaction with the objects that they're shopping for. So, imagine that you're walking through a virtual the convenience store and you're picking some items off of the shelf. And when you go to check out, those items physically get delivered to your house. I often use here Nike as an example as well. It's very feasible for major brands like Nike to establish themselves in the metaverse, create a shopping experience. The user that happens to purchase a pair of shoes from them not only gets the physical goods delivered to them, but it's possible for them to run a promotion where you also get the NFT representing that same pair of shoes that you can equip on your avatar in the digital world. But beyond that, things like concerts or music festivals, art galleries, museums, all of these are experiences that people can partake in. And there's, of all the people around the world, there's many people that just would never have access to some of those same types of experiences. But when you throw in your VR headset, enter the digital world, it doesn't matter where you live geographically. right? You can still get access and exposure to all of these same events. So the first is I do think it's going to completely disrupt e-commerce. I think it's going to disrupt all social media platforms, which is probably why Facebook is making the strategic moves that they are. And I also think it's going to create the largest labor market that has ever existed. Going back to that comment of kind of geographic boundaries, well, and where we're seeing some of the biggest growth, by the way, are in emerging markets and developing worlds. So the Philippines, this was, Axi's biggest market and was really led by efforts by the team at Yield Guild Games, which is a guild that helped onboard new users to learn how to monetize their time. And in almost every instance, the people that were actively participating in Axie were earning 3 to 4 times the wages that they would earn working a job in the local economy. And so, Philippines, Southeast Asia, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia, India, some parts of China, South Africa, we're seeing massive growth there because the earnings potential is just significantly higher in the digital world than it is in their local economy. And as a result of that, I believe that we'll see massive inflows of capital into the metaverse, people that are looking to acquire these assets, these NFTs, with no intention of deploying them or utilizing them themselves. And we have conversations every week with venture capital groups that are looking at buying assets and then want somebody to be an operator of those assets. And so if you're a fund and you own a couple $1 million worth of ships that you don't have the time to fly, you can hire somebody from anywhere in the world to pilot that ship for you and actually generate the income, generate the yield for your portfolio. And I just think that it's incredible the opportunity that this is going to create for people all over the world.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me, Michael. So what you're talking about is, let's say there are a few different metaverses in the crypto space being built, and the same way that you can think of I suppose the early days of Bitcoin as a kind of gold rush in the Wild West. Now we're seeing something similar in terms of virtual land and virtual worlds, or virtual space and virtual star systems. So yeah, I mean, not everyone has the time, right, to immerse themselves and spend time building up their star fleets and navigating the universe and conquering different territories and fighting these political battles. But you're exactly right. If you can spot the opportunity and allocate some capital, then you just need a couple of young, smart gamers to pilot the fleet, and it's it works for everyone, right?
It does. It's very much win-win, across the board for everyone involved.
Talk to me. Let's just switch gears slightly to, I suppose, sci-fi, right? Because that's really what this is. Just kind of reading through some of the lore and the, you talk about, there's some of the language is really nice when it comes to Star Atlas. It's like be part of the intergalactic prosperity, which very much sounds like Star Trek or Foundation even. Great new Foundation reimagining on Apple TV at the moment. I'm not sure if you've seen that. Love to just get your perspectives on, I suppose, the world building, the lore, who creates all this. You talked about having over 100 people on the team and probably 3 or 4 Xing that over the year ahead. It's quite challenging to create these new worlds, build the assets and write the lore that goes around it. Love to just kind of hear some of what goes into that, and also talk through, use some examples from Star Atlas as to, the different factions and how that works for the user.
Sure. I should comment here. I mean, I feel extremely grateful. We've been able to recruit some of the brightest minds from all over the world, people that are just fascinated by the concept and see the potential of this really massive vision. Admittedly, this is a huge undertaking, but people have been really flocking to us and reaching out to us and wanting to be a part of this. So we have an amazingly talented team across, all departments, but I would give a lot of credit here to Danny Floyd. He's the chief product officer. He's really the visionary behind the game concept itself. So all of the gameplay mechanics, the gameplay pillars, structuring and design of the game itself. That's all his department on the creative side. Jacob Floyd is our chief technology officer. So he's led up the efforts behind things like our NFT marketplace, which we launched back in April of this year. Now, this is an exclusive marketplace for Star Atlas assets, and it's at play.staratlas.com. But his team built the marketplace that enabled us to sell our initial NFTs. It led to the Galactic asset offering in September. But I should mention here that we're actually developing out on 2 concurrent tracks. Our objective is to get gameplay features out sooner than later. These AAA quality games typically have a development cycle of something like 5 to 7 years. Now, we didn't want to bring this vision to the world and then make them wait for 4 to 7 years for it to be delivered. And so we're also building out a mini game concept. This will be delivered in browser as a web app. It will have all of the same gameplay mechanics that players will be exposed to in the fully immersive world, but just delivered on an expedited timeline. The other benefit to that is that we are, because we're trying to build as much of the gameplay logic on chain as possible, we actually get to, in a way, beta test out the actual blockchain mechanics and logic that will be integrated into Unreal Engine as well. And so Jacob's team's leading up all of the engineering on the mini game, as well as the marketplace and maintaining all of those products. Pablo is our chief revenue officer. And so he leads up, things like business development, strategic partnerships, marketing, communications. And to his credit, he helped lead up the effort of our initial campaign, which we called Rebirth, Genesis of a Metaverse. These posters are still available on the market through secondary markets, not direct from us as a team. But this was a 14-week campaign that we launched in April. It ran through July. And what we delivered were what we call multimedia meta posters. So every week we unveiled a new poster, which revealed some of the lore and background and history of Star Atlas itself. The concept art was all created by our team in-house. And then we worked with teams like Shape Immersive out of Vancouver, who created a augmented reality immersive experience that overlays it. And then we also had audio soundscapes, and we partnered with some mainstream musicians like Blondish and Bassjackers and Ricky Desktop, Swaco the Child. We had Deadmau5 on our final poster, and that campaign had a really unique economic model behind it as well. I won't go into detail here, but you can still find the history of that campaign on the NFT marketplace. So yeah, super grateful to have these really bright minds that are co-founders and the teams that are being formed in those departments that are just super passionate about what we're building and really truly see the potential of bringing this product to market.
Awesome. Yeah, I have seen those posters. They look super cool. Well, let's talk about some of the I suppose the crypto and blockchain stuff, Michael. So Solana, right? So Solana is the chain that you guys are building on, and Solana has obviously done incredibly well this year, right? So love to just hear why you, I suppose, decided to work on Solana and how close you are to the various people in the Solana ecosystem and how that all fits together.
Yeah, Solana, in hindsight, that was one of the best decisions we probably have made across the company. And it was, on the tail of assessment of a lot of, what I consider to be generation 3 blockchains. So, highly scalable, high transaction throughput, low cost blockchains. And there are a number of them out there, Cosmos and Avalanche and Flow and probably Elrond Gold, there's a number of others. And, but what we were looking at was, first and foremost, how scalable is this technology going to be going into the future, considering that we really perceive our total achievable market to be the global population. And I say that because, not only are we going after crypto native people, not only are we going after gamers, but we're going after disrupting global economics and creating this massive labor market across the metaverse. And so, what we're looking for is essentially over time, being able to deliver a product that serves billions of users, right? Which is almost absurd to say, but we believe it's possible. And so What was really attractive about Solana was not only did it, exceed 50,000 transactions per second. I think it's something like up to 65,000 transactions per second right now. Sub-second finality on state changes. And this is important in gaming and digital worlds. People that are familiar with gaming would be familiar with the concept of lag, and it's your worst enemy if you're a gamer. And so having 400 millisecond finality on changes to the blockchain itself, that was important. Transactions are less than a penny. Not only important for us as a developer, but also as the gamer that is going to be taking a lot of actions across the universe. Imagine if it was being built on Ethereum, which I'm still a fan of, but just wouldn't be suitable for the type of product that we're building. But if every time you wanted to place a building on a parcel of land, you had to pay a couple of $100s, that's not sustainable at all. And so from the tech standpoint, it was kind of the perfect product. I should also mention that everything that they're achieving, they're doing on a layer 1 without sharding. So it's not a layer 2 solution, and we don't have to deal with kind of like, the fractionalizing of data across the blockchain. So that was impressive. The pedigree of the team is very strong. These are guys that come from backgrounds at companies like Qualcomm, where they worked in scalability through parallelization. And then on top of that, we saw it as an opportunity to get involved with a very promising blockchain at a very early state. So when we were talking to them back in August or September of last year, they were still pretty low in terms of adoption. There was something like 20 projects building there. Now they're well over 500. It might even be over 600 today. And so we saw this as an opportunity to get involved with, as I said, a very promising protocol at a very early state. And they've been extremely supportive of us during this whole period of development. So, and then outside of that, there is also, the fact that there's the whole DeFi focus right now on Solana. And we were the first gaming project to come to them, the first NFT project to come to them. But in our case, wanting to deliver DeFi primitives to our users so that they can not only earn off of the game while they're playing, but then take that capital, put it into something like a liquidity pool or a lending pool or a staking pool, and compound and grow that money was super important. And so we get the benefit of all of these projects that are now interested in building on Solana, integrating their products into our game and delivering those features direct to our users. So that was important. And then a final point I would make is just we saw an early endorsement from some big names in the space. So Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX, and they kind of led this consortium behind Project Serum, which is the decentralized exchange protocol that sits as a layer on top of Solana. But seeing that endorsement and buy-in from them was very encouraging to us as well. And so myriad factors went into the decision, but once again, I do believe that it was one of the best decisions we've made as a company.
Yeah, I'm sure you do, and I'm sure that's quite correct. And well, how do you see? It's fascinating watching the rise of Solana and as you say, like DeFi and NFTs on Solana. How do you see? I suppose the Solana, DeFi, NFT, all those ecosystems evolving.
It's a great question. To me, we're still at the earliest stages of adoption of all of these new innovative products. I do believe that there's some oversaturation in a couple of the segments. Things like the profile pics, that we're seeing, kind of like the crypto punks, but on multiple chains. We'll see if those are sustainable. For us, I would default back to, we are creating these utility-driven NFTs that have intrinsic value through the ability to earn income off of them. And that doesn't exist across all NFTs that are in many cases just collectibles. Not disparaging those, there's plenty of value in collecting art, but depending on what the user's objective is, those probably will not all succeed. Same thing with DeFi. We see a lot of replication of models that have worked. Now, it's great to see it when you're going from one protocol to another. So, from Ethereum to BSC over to Solana, you almost need duplications of the functional protocols. But, when it starts to get competitive, there's definitely going to be some winners and losers there. And that's all yet to be determined. But DeFi itself was probably the best use case that we've seen in cryptocurrency to date. It's had the best stickiness. It has the most fundamental value, and has led to the growth of, and adoption by many, many users from around the world. They see the true value of what can be delivered through the tech.
And I know there's a couple of different tokens that go into Star Atlas. So we should talk about the Star Atlas. There's a governance token, and you talked about the Polis DAO. So yeah, how does that play into the game?
Yeah, and let me take a moment maybe to plug our game economic and tokenomic white paper. We actually just released an updated version of this back in August. So for anyone that is looking to get more information about how the tokens are structured and how they derive utility across the metaverse, I would highly encourage reading that. We do also have a preceding white paper that was released that's also available on staratlas.com, so check those out. But we do operate as a dual token ecosystem. And so Atlas, as I mentioned, is our medium of exchange. You can kind of think of that as being analogous to in-game gold in most massively multiplayer online games that people would have been exposed to. All transactions across the metaverse, inside the metaverse, are denominated in Atlas. So not only are players earning Atlas through gameplay, but we operate under kind of a traditional business mindset of every business has operating costs. And so if you're piloting a ship, you have to refuel it over time, and you have to repair it over time. You have to feed your crew members. So things like this on your ship will have to be paid for. They have to be paid for with Atlas. Same thing with land. You have to pay land value tax. You have to replace equipment over time as it wears out, upgrading items, and then otherwise just like purchasing consumables, like one-time use items. Those are all denominated in Atlas. That flows into, actually, and kind of an important point here is we do draw a very clear line between how we derive revenue as a company, which is through NFT sales, new asset sales, but all of the economic value that's generated inside the metaverse itself is retained by the metaverse. So all of those operating costs that are being paid by players ultimately flow into the Polis DAO, the Star Atlas DAO. So this is our Polis token. It's the governance token. We have quite a sophisticated hierarchical structure of DAOs throughout the game. There is the master DAO that kind of sits outside of the metaverse, and people that own Polis can stake to that. They can earn emissions from that, but they also have the ability to kind of determine the long-term design and development of Star Atlas itself. And that means they might be able to, submit proposals that require us as a game developer to release a new feature or modify the economics of the game, like inflation rates, asset release schedules, things of this nature. So that's the master DAO. And then inside the game, we also have a series of DAO that consists of the factions. There are 3 warring factions. That's part of the lore: the Mud, the Oni, and the Ooster. So this is essentially humans, aliens, and cybernetic organisms from the future. And so each one of those factions will have a faction DAO. And then there are regional DAOs that go down to more of a local level, kind of local governance. And then the guild system in our game, which we call decentralized autonomous corporations, or DACs, those will also have their own DAO structures. And we're actually building out a framework right now that will enable groups of players who are looking to register a guild or a DAC to establish themselves as an official DAO upon registration. And so through that, they'll be able to manage their guild governance as well as manage guild treasuries, and then make decisions based on this, this structure that exists, this decentralized governance structure that already exists out there in the world. So that's Star Atlas and Atlas currency and Polis, and how that's utilized throughout the game as not only master DAO, but also for the political strategy component.
Fascinating, Michael. Well, I suppose we should start to finish off. And maybe instead of doing the very famous crypto conversation hot take round, which we probably did the first time you were on the show, but it's just so interesting to get your perspectives on metaverse everything, really. So maybe just from a really a wider approach. So you talked earlier about how there's just such an interesting narrative emerging. So we've got, on the one hand, Facebook, which slowly or rapidly pivoting to what they describe as a metaverse company. And I always talk about how the kind of the Facebook vision of a metaverse is, in my mind, kind of dystopian, really, just because it's obviously it'll be a really closed system, and it will be highly controlled, centralized, censored. And I don't know if you saw that that video that Zuck and Facebook put out of a kind of, it's like a kind of their version of a utopian work environment, but it just looked like a really kind of white bread version of a futuristic Zoom call. It wasn't terribly interesting. So you've got kind of that version of a metaverse. Then, you talk about Fortnite, right? And so Tim Sweeney, obviously a really interesting guy, and he's been fighting quite a interesting battle against the likes of Apple, right? And but at the same time, as much as Fortnite is this incredible sandbox and probably the most fully functioning, closest version of a metaverse to date, he's talked about blockchain being interesting, but he says there's no way that Fortnite will be offering NFTs anytime soon. So again, it's that kind of closed system. It's not yet possible to earn money in Fortnite, which is such a no-brainer, I think, for Tim. And then you've got the kind of all the decentralized versions of the metaverse, and there's so many really smart thinkers on crypto Twitter that kind of always outlining, the kind of decentralized vision of what a true metaverse should be. So it's just, again, the same way we're going to have the battles of the currencies over the next decade, kind of CBDCs versus Bitcoin versus stable coins. That's a fascinating narrative in itself, but the metaverse battles are the same. Love to just get your high level thoughts on what you think happens, Michael.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the simple fact that we come from a deep background and have deep expertise in crypto assets and blockchain, and fully adopt the ethos of decentralization and kind of fair and transparent technological systems, I think that's going to be one of our largest competitive advantages. I do not think that the metaverse in the future is going to be this centralized walled garden approach that we've seen in a lot of legacy tech. And in fact, maybe just to elaborate slightly on the Polis DAO itself, as tokens are distributed over time, through that inflation mechanism and emission schedule, the players themselves will actually get to determine the future outcome of Star Atlas. At some point, it converts over. When we lose majority stake, it converts over to this public utility, and then the world at large, based on staking and this governance and proposal system, will get to determine the outcome of Star Atlas. So we're not building a product that has a life cycle of 10 to 20 years like a lot of traditional games. We're building a public utility that can evolve into perpetuity, and that's really incredible. And most, any corporate entity, especially publicly traded one, would never create a product as massive as that and then just turn it over to the world. And so I think that's, what really discerns us from legacy tech. I think that is what the metaverse is going to be. We'll see a lot more interoperability between, kind of call it the multiverse model, if you will, wherein NFTs from one environment can flow into another environment. You have a single avatar that exists across all games or metaverses that you play in. I don't think it's going to be all encompassing. It's going to be more of a traversing the environment that you want to be engaged in at any particular point in time. And so, the other big emerging factor from the metaverse is just social and human experience in general. a lot of people will probably join the metaverse with no intent to play, but just as a place to hang out with their friends and socialize with their friends. And so, once again, I don't see that happening through the walled garden approach. And I think that it's also going to make it very difficult for legacy game developers, even those AAA studios, to get involved in something like, metaverse like the one that we've built, simply because there's a steep learning curve to figuring out how crypto itself works and how NFTs work and how blockchain works, and then creating this economic model underlying all of it, which is incredibly complex and is not it's not a skill set that they're accustomed to. It's not the way that you develop traditional game environments, and in many cases, well, in almost every case, traditional games are hyperinflationary by their very nature, right? And so in our case, we have to make sure we actually control for inflation. Not everybody can just go get every asset that exists in the game. It has to be fought for, and it has to be won, right? And it has to be competitive. And so I feel quite good about where we're at. I think our expertise in crypto is going to benefit us significantly. And I, while it's coming, while there's going to be some mainstream competition out there, I think it's still a ways off.
Yes, indeed. All right. Well, just to finish off, I suppose, Michael, you gave us a little bit of a snapshot at the top of the show, and I think I referred to Tokes as disrupting the medical marijuana space, but I think that's slightly incorrect. So please do just correct that and give us a little bit of an update on where Tokes is at, and I suppose, the state of the legal cannabis industry in the US at the moment and how that's all rolling out.
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, legal cannabis continues to grow around the world, not just in the United States. We're seeing many countries that adopt a framework for legalizing and distributing cannabis products. We are still heavily focused on the legal markets within the United States. We're focused on that pilot program that I was describing in the state of Nevada, where effectively we're able to act as an intermediary of sorts and remove the cash. For anyone that doesn't know, legal cannabis in the U.S., it's federally illegal, but legal at the state level in several formats, either recreationally, which means anyone can buy it over a certain age, or medically, which means you need some doctor's approval and use for treating an ailment. But because these businesses are technically federally illegal, traditional financial services businesses won't work with them. So they don't have access to banks, and they don't have access to electronic payment methods. Now, this is changing a little bit, but we saw very early on that truly decentralized financial technology like blockchain could be a great solution there. And so we're still focused on the pilot program in Nevada, but at the same time, we're actually undergoing a bit of a pivot ourselves. You mentioned multi-chain ventures. It's been an interesting journey with Tokes itself, starting in 2016, seeing that evolve into kind of a portfolio company that is multi-chain ventures that consisted of several subsidiary brands. We're kind of making the cut on products like Reli and Eden and Cubed Pay, and focusing exclusively on Tokes platform, which we're going to be rebranding just to Tokes. So I would say, anyone that has experience or familiar with our previous projects, keep an eye out for that. But there are a few other interesting developments, also kind of a merger in discussion right now around some innovative cannabis products. And what we're still attempting to accomplish there is not only deliver those financial solutions, create a lifestyle brand that individuals, the customer themselves, can get behind. And maybe I should mention here, this is slightly impactful to both Metaverse and digital currency, as well as to what we're doing at Tokes. But we're seeing quite a bit of inflation take place in the economy right now, and this is largely because of the fiat system and the perpetual printing of money that's taking place globally by central banks. But it's very feasible that in the future a digital currency does win out, and whether that's a government-based digital currency or some decentralized one, and yet to be determined. But I think we're in a really interesting point in time where the economy itself is kind of on uncertain grounds, unstable ground. But I mean, the other things that we're still working on there are delivering transparency throughout the entire supply chain. It's important. This is a kind of a regulated necessity. You have to have transparency from the seed to sale. You have to be able to track it from the point where it was grown all the way down to the consumer, but also being able to take feedback from consumers and deliver better quality experiences and consumption experiences to those users based on the data that we've received. So very exciting times, quite a lot going on, but I think both of the companies that I'm involved with are have tremendously promising potential.
Awesome to hear, Michael. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us the vision for Star Atlas. Are going to be incredible to watch this new metaverse unfold. Please just close out the show by telling people where they can find you on your various platforms, or where they should go to learn more about Star Atlas and engage with the galaxy.
Sure. I would, once again, encourage everyone to go to staratlas.com. We released a really immersive website and experience there. So just visiting the site is pretty enjoyable. You can find a lot of our content there. But for anyone that's looking to get a kind of a road into Star Atlas, I would direct them to our Discord channel, which is just discord.gg/Star Atlas. We have had guilds forming, or these DACs that have been forming since early in the year, as early as February. The community is very supportive and very helpful and very informative. So those are probably the best communication channels. Of course, follow us on Twitter. You can follow me on Twitter and find us in Telegram as well. Awesome.
Thanks very much, Michael. All the best, and bye for now.
Thanks, Andy. Always great chatting with you.
All right, there you go. That was Michael Wagner from Star Atlas Multi-Chain Ventures and the Tokes platform. Man, Star Atlas does look good. Yeah, as Michael mentioned at the end there, the website is very immersive. So, I mean, the website is, it's a cool experience in itself. If you have not checked that out, it does give you a very good sense of what the game aspires to be, and really more than the game. I think that's the ultimate vision, it's the ultimate vision of the metaverse, but, it is the case for Star Atlas. The idea is that, it is really going to be a fully functioning economy, and it'd be possible to, earn an income inside the Star Atlas universe eventually, which is pretty cool. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. Thanks very much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe to the Crypto Conversation in whatever podcast app you are using. But for today, that's us. We are done. We are out of here. Cheers, team. This was the Crypto Conversation for Brave a New Coin. See you.